Reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my brothers, is not an easy process. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the average human being 50, 60 years. Trust me, Allah didn't give you 50, 60 years so you can pay off a house or you can establish your business. But rather it takes 50, 60 years to purify your heart, to purify your soul, and to finally reach the levels that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. And don't let the fact that now as you're praying, the fact that you can't get attention or the fact that you don't have any concentration, don't let that be a means to turn you off. For the more you stand in dunya, the less you will stand when in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of resurrection. Every moment that you do here is not wasted with Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, even an atom's weight of good, does not go unnoticed with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the truth is, my brothers, one of the reasons why we don't get, look, there's many reasons as to why we don't have concentration, many. But those that have devotion and concentration, this is of the highest level. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, successful are those believers. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Successful are those believers, yani they've reached the highest of levels, those who in their prayer they have khushuع. Those that have khushuع, so really you and I, that should be the aim, that should be the struggle. And it's not going to come within one Ramadan. And unfortunately, when you look at our lives, it's 11 months, and you know as well as I do that our lifestyle and the way that we live, 11 months we're busy, distracted, this, that and the other. You standing in these prayers now, 20 rak'at, and trust me bro, I feel like they're 2 hours literally, but I feel like it's years out of my life that's being taken out. Every single night when I leave, my nafs, my shaytan tells me this is the last time I'm coming, this is the last time I'm coming. Why? Because the nafs doesn't want it, bro. The nafs doesn't want to stand here for 2 hours praying. The nafs wants to be at home, laying down on the bed, watching YouTube for 3 hours, 4 hours, wallah, with a big smile on your face. That's what the nafs wants. But not every time our nafs wants something, we give it to it. No, rather what you're doing here, this is actually struggling in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We struggle and we struggle and we keep on struggling until it eventually comes. Many of the pious predecessors, in fact some of them were even Sahabah. One of the most famous statements, he said, I prayed Qiyam al-Layl, he said, I prayed Tahajjud prayer for 20 years. He said, I prayed Tahajjud for 20 years until I eventually started tasting the sweetness of Tahajjud prayer. 20 years. Not wallah one Ramadan or a couple of rak'at or 2 hours, 3 hours here. 20 years, imagine that. But that's how you win the race. It's that person that has istiqamah. One of the companions, he came to the Prophet of Allah, he says, well, Prophet of Allah, give me advice, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says to him, give me advice so that after you, I never have to seek advice. He says to him, قُلْ آمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. He says, say that you believe in Allah and be firm and be steadfast. Yeah, it's easy to say La ilaha illallah. Easy, trust me, it's very, very easy. To say La ilaha illallah is very easy. But to hang on to La ilaha illallah, to hang on to your prayer, to hang on to your fast, to hang on to your deen. The Prophet of Allah, he says that there will come a time in my ummah where any one of you hanging on to his deen will be like hanging on to 2 burning coals. Live coal, burning coal. So we need to push ourselves. And wallahi, no matter how difficult it is and no matter how much, know that there is success in this. There is success. Just hang on and then wallahi, eventually it will come. And I want to end with this nice story. I'm not sure if the non-Arabs are familiar, but there's a very famous figure in the Arab history. His name is Antar. Anyone heard of Antar? You've ever heard of Antar? Antar is like your, what's the equivalent in English? Rambo. No, it's not like Rambo. Antar is like, Antar was a figure that was in our history, very, very strong, was always successful, everything always went his way, very well known, you know, he could take on a lion, you know, like he was just one of those, actually he was a real figure, but over time he became this, this exaggerated figure, right? So anyway, in the time of Antar himself, word was around that Antar was the man to conquer, Antar was the man to beat. So one time this big wrestler at the time, he went in search for this man called Antar. He says, you know, who's this guy Antar? Everyone knows about him and I'm this big wrestler and no one's ever heard of my name. Anyway, so he goes in search of Antar and then eventually finds him. And when he comes to see Antar, was really big anticlimax. He's expecting this mountain, he sees this little bloke. he looks at Antar, he says, you're Antar, bro? He says, yeah, I'm Antar, man. He says, you're the one that everyone knows about? He says, yeah, I'm the one that everyone knows about. He says, what makes you so strong, man? I can knock you out with a slap, bro. I'll knock you out. He says to him, look, I'll tell you what. Let's have a competition and we'll see which one of us is stronger. He says, yeah, all right, I'm ready. He says, look, I'll put my finger in your mouth and you put your finger in my mouth and we'll both bite on it. And the first one to scream loses. He says, all right, fine. So they put each other's fingers in the opposite's mouth, right? So this guy puts his finger in the other one and they both squeeze. And they squeeze and they're letting it rip and they're biting with all their might, trying to get the next guy to scream. Till eventually the big guy screamed. Then after he screamed, he said to him, man, how could you not scream? He said to him, had you waited one more moment, I was about to scream. One more moment. Sometimes between winning and failing, wallahi, is a moment. You just got to push yourself that extra mile. Push yourself that extra mile. And that's what we need to gain. These kids are pushing themselves all the miles in the world. Doing laps and laps and laps. Please, whoever's kids these are, please, we beg you, wallahi, we'll pay you money if you want. Come, we'll give you a wage. Please control your kids. So, right, we need to push ourselves because that's what it takes. And I know I said I'll end with this, but there's a very famous statement with Muhammad Ali. One time he was having an interview, and this is when he was world champ. So one time when he was world champ, he was having an interview and they asked him, and they said to him, how much do you run in a day? How much do you jog? So he said to them, I jog 5 miles. Now 5 miles for me, I'll have a heart attack after a mile. But for a world champion athlete, it's not. So the man's surprised. He says to him, you're a world champion, you only run 5 miles. He says, no, he says, you misunderstood. He says, I run until I can't run anymore. Then I count my 5 miles. And that's what it takes to be the champion, you know. So even though you're not feeling it now, you still need to push yourself. And trust me, it's coming. Trust me, it's coming. Wallahi, not a moment you stand in front of Allah will go wasted. Even though you're not understanding the words, even that within itself should be enough. We stand in front of Allah not because Allah needs us, but rather we need Allah. And that should be a form of motivation for you that, Ya Allah, I'm standing here, I have no idea what the Imam is saying. My legs are hurting me, my everything is against me. But I'm standing and I'm pushing myself only for your pleasure. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept us. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.